Hi, Mario. My question for you is, are angels real? What is your opinion on this topic?
Hi, Robert. Can you define real? Does real mean do they exist, or are they real in what way? Exist
Well, let's say that they exist.
in the physical realm of some other dimension, or how? How would you define real?
Well, in any dimension of your choosing.
Then I think they are real, but we can probably define them in different ways. Yes, I think they are real. I'm just avoiding the term angels, which is actually similar for me. I treat angels similar like demons, which was one of our subjects before. I believe there are spirits and energy around us which we cannot perceive in or maybe can in some instances in our real life, and they respond to us in some way if we can synchronize our energy with their energy. But are angels real in terms of beings? So are they beings? I don't believe that way they are beings, as I don't believe that the God is real as a being, to has some existence as a being. But I can define angels as energy which we are submerged into, and there are many interesting things how different cultures and religions define angels. Since I was Christian, I always say that I was Christian. In Bible, angels are known as in prophetic tradition, they are guidance, or they contribute to our experience of revelation. They are a vehicle for communication with divinity, and they are like intermediary beings. So I believe you would say something how Torah define angels. However, in Buddhism, there is not such a thing as angels, but they understand the messengers, or how to say, they call that energy bodhisattva, which is energy which has some attributes. Let's say in some Buddhist, it's not like a common thing in Buddhism. Each school has different definition. Some schools define two main bodhisattvas. The most widespread bodhisattva is called Manjushri, which is bodhisattva of transcendent wisdom, and its attribute is they call it diamond sword, and it's used for cutting attachments. We talked many times that attachment to existence and the material things is the most important thing in Buddhism, because when we cut attachments, actually we are free to live life without attachments and without pain or without suffering, which is actually the main problem which all human beings want to solve. In the second most widespread bodhisattva is bodhisattva of compassion, and it's said that that bodhisattva embodied the compassion, and its attribute is to present itself like 1,000 hands and eyes of compassion. So Buddhism is focused on that kind of that aspects of spiritual, let's say, world or energies, which I call them energies. Why I based my opinion on angels and demons in this energy world is this thing that each culture or religion has people who have visions or seeings of some angels or spiritual beings. However, Buddhists they simply cannot have visions of, let's say, Holy Mary or Jesus or Moses or whatever religion other religions teach. Related to that, usually Christians don't have visions of Buddha. So that simply shows me that visions of energy, some energy which has some meaning or conveys some message to our physical realm, is connected with religious concepts we follow or we are taught about, or whatever concept of spiritual and real world we have. So therefore,
is your conclusion then that those visions are just illusions?
In terms of illusions, in what way? They are the humans who experience visions translate the visions of Holy Mary is energy of Holy Mary translated to human mind through concepts that mind has been thought. Therefore, that vision of Holy Mary is illusion, but the energy behind that vision, which is translated to some kind of teaching conveyed to that human being which has visions, is real. But Holy Mary, vision of Holy Mary is not real. That's illusion. But the energy behind, which is so Holy Mary is just a symbol which has some meaning in that illusion. But Holy Mary is not real, in my opinion. So that's kind of because if Holy Mary, vision of Holy Mary is real, then other religions, let's say Buddhist or Zen or whatever philosophy you have, would also experience Holy Mary or Jesus or whatever other beings in their visions, but they don't experience that, and that's conclusive in some researches I read. I cannot cite any of them at the moment, but it's kind of interesting to see how angels in this terms, angels are real, but not as angels literally, but as energies which communicate from spiritual dimensions to our physical dimension through our concepts of mind and religions and whatever concepts we have. So angels are real, but they are not real as angels.
Okay, very interesting.
What is your...
Are you interested in...
Yes.
Oh, okay, can I share my perspective?
Yes, please.
Oh, wow. So in Judaism, Satan perhaps is the most famous angel, of course. And in Judaism, Satan is the name of a prosecuting angel in the heavenly court. And this is described, for example, in the Hebrew Bible in Zechariah 3:1 and Job chapter 1. Yet, some say that he became an independent ruler over a realm of eternal damnation, and that he acts in opposition to God's will, i.e., that he is a separate God. This idolatrous concept is not even a belief in an intermediary, since it claims that Satan is not under God's control. So before this discussion, you asked me privately about Lucifer. There is no Lucifer in Judaism. So there is no evil angel who opposes God and he acts as a separate God. That is a completely non-Jewish belief. So in Judaism, Satan is just an obedient angel. In Genesis 32:25, it states, "And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn." So this is a very enigmatic verse, but Rashi explained that this was actually the guardian angel of Esau. In Exodus 23:21, it says, "Beware of him and obey him. Do not rebel against him, for he will not forgive your transgression, for my name is within him." Rashi explains that this is the angel Metatron, whose name is like the name of his master. And what does it mean that his name is like the name of his master? It means that the numerical value in Hebrew of Metatron is like the numerical value of one of God's Hebrew names. Now, in Yesodei HaTorah 2:7, Maimonides explains that the different names with which the angels are called reflect their spiritual levels. Thus, they are called: 1, the holy Hayot, who are above all the others; 2, the Ophanim; 3, the Erelim; 4, the Hashmalim; 5, the Seraphim; 6, the Malachim; 7, the Elohim; 8, the sons of the Elohim; 9, the Cheruvim; and 10, the Ishim. So there are 10 spiritual levels of angels in Judaism, and I want to focus a little bit on the highest level, which is the Hayot angels, because they are actually related to the Noahide prohibition of eating flesh taken from a living animal. You might ask, how could they be related? But there is a very specific explanation. So, in the Divine Code by Rabbi Weiner, 2nd edition, page 299, the author explains that the prohibition against eating flesh taken from a living animal applies only to domesticated mammals, wild mammals, and birds. God also did not grant permission to eat human flesh, whether or not it would be removed while the person was alive. These 4 categories of living beings are represented by the 4 faces of the Hayot angels of the divine chariot, the faces of the ox, lion, eagle, and human, as these angels are described in Ezekiel 1:10. Now, since these angels are elevated to the highest levels of the heavens, we can speculate that God gives an extra honor to their reflections in the physical world through the Torah's universal restrictions on Eiver Mincha Chai and cannibalism. Therefore, the mystical reason for this prohibition is to honor the holy Hayot angels. And this is a very good example where usually mysticism in religious traditions doesn't always affect the practical application of a commandment, but this is a very good example where a mystical teaching is deeply connected to the practical prohibition. And that's all I have in my presentation. So angels, there are major differences between Judaism and Christianity. For example, Judaism absolutely rejects praying to angels. Any kind of prayer directed to angels is considered idolatry in Judaism, because worshiping any created thing is idolatry, including angels. Angels are not infinite, they are not unlimited. They are limited by a spiritual body and form. And God is completely unlimited, so worshiping any created thing which is limited like angels is 100% idolatry in Judaism.
So what kind of form do they have?
Well, they have a spiritual body and form. That's what the oral Torah teaches. If they have some kind of specific role which they have to play in the physical world, they might assume a temporary physical form as well, as we see in Genesis 32:25, where Jacob wrestled a man, and this was actually the angel of Esau, right? But angels do not play as big of a role in Judaism as they apparently do in Christianity, right? Where as far as I remember, in Christianity, people pray to angels and they worship angels. They pray to angels in order to, as you mentioned, as a kind of intermediary, right?
Yes.
So that is completely unacceptable in Judaism. In Judaism, you are not allowed to pray to angels. You are not allowed to pray to rabbis. You are not allowed to pray to Moses, or you are only allowed to pray directly to God, right? So any kind of prayer directed to some other being implies that this being has some kind of divine power, which it literally does not have. So that is something which would be unacceptable in Judaism.
Do you have any personal experience? Have you had any visions or anything connected with angels or some beings or spiritual world yourself? I mean, personally?
Oh, wow, there is a long story, and I actually asked my mother if I have, because you know my mother, and I asked her if I have the permission to share her story with you publicly, as we are now, and she gave me the permission. So I do not have a personal experience with angels, but my mother does. My mother does. When she was a young girl, she was in a meadow during the night. And she told me many years afterwards that she saw huge. She saw something like the burning bush, and as you know, the burning bush is a expression found in the Torah, which describes an angel of God, right? So it describes an angel of God. And she told me that while she was walking through the meadow, she saw huge spiritual flames arising out of nothing. And she told me that the surprising thing was that she wasn't afraid of those spiritual flames, right? So usually she would be terrified, but she told me she wasn't afraid. And the next morning, she told, of course, she told her parents what happened, and everyone dismissed her story because they believed that she was a naive little girl. But what does she know, right? And the next morning, she went to the exact location where she saw this burning bush. And there was no physical trace of burning. Right? Now, I assume that our readers or listeners rather, of course, they don't know the whole context, but you know, and you know that my mother has a master's degree in chemistry, right? So she is not easily convinced that something can burn without leaving a physical trace, right?
Exactly.
So she literally told me that even though she has a master's degree in chemistry, she literally to this day is not able to explain how she saw that burning bush and how that burning bush left no physical traces. Afterwards, I discussed this issue with my teacher, Dr. Michael Schulman, and I told him that because I taught my mother the Jewish Torah, I taught her that, when I first heard her story, I told her, well, I don't know what happened exactly. I wasn't there. But judging by your words, this sounds really a lot like the burning bush found in the Torah. So I told her that verse. And when I told her that expression, burning bush, she agreed that is a very good description of what she saw, right? So my rabbi, Dr. Michael Schulman, he told me that it is possible that she saw an angel of God, or that she saw God in a prophetic vision, right? Because he told me that spiritual non-consuming flames are representative of God's divine presence. So that's what he told me, right? So I do not have a direct personal experience with angels, but my mother does, assuming that this was an angel of God and not God himself in a prophetic vision, right? So that this is a family story which my mother told me numerous times, and I have no reason to doubt her sincerity, and especially because she is a scientist, she really isn't easily convinced that the supernatural can happen. It's different when you experience the supernatural firsthand or when you hear a story from someone else. So she told me that the spiritual flame did not share any message, right? So she did not receive any kind of prophecy from it, but it appeared, right? It appeared, and who knows? My personal opinion is that that experience helped her to abandon Christianity and to start learning about the Jewish Torah, because it fits so well with her personal experience. So that's my opinion why that event occurred. Perhaps God knew beforehand that she would need some kind of supernatural guidance later in life to start following the Jewish Torah. So as a non-Jew, of course, because we're not Jews. So that's the kind of angelic experience my family has.
That's fantastic story actually, and it's interesting how those energies can convey message even without message. So even just without mental message or mind or some thoughts or whatever should happen, the message by the presence of some or vision was enough to move your mother in some direction. That's fantastic. I can tell. Yes,
Well, I did not expect to share this story now, but since you asked an excellent question regarding my angelic experiences, it was a good opportunity to share it.
Definitely, because I got the vision that you have a story to share. So that was also that was also an impulse I got. So probably not. I haven't thought about that. So it's just an impulse which I can. I can tell that I'm training myself to synchronize with different energies which I want to attract and use, and in that terms I can tell that spiritual realms or energy realms can help us immensely if we can find a way how to communicate with that energies, and the words are the lowest level of the communication we could have. There are different states of mind and feelings which can communicate wordless with that spiritual world. So I wouldn't like to express more at the moment or reveal more, but maybe one time we can talk about that, what are my experiences, what they have been since a few years now.
Okay then, Mario, thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Likewise, it was very interesting for me to learn how Satan, and let's say Shaitan in Islam, if I believe so, how they have roles in different religions.
Yes, and we are Godless Judaism.
We discuss atheism, religion, and everything else.